That was weird. You never said one. I guess we're going. All right. Welcome to the 12th episode of the Next Man Up podcast. As you can see, we're having some technical difficulties today. It's our first podcast where we're on video. Adam, Rich, say hello. It's good to see your family.
Hello.
Sup,
You guys
sup?
are both rocking the Bears gear today. Is that correct?
Yeah, not by choice. I just
Rich,
walked
go a
in the
little
door.
lower. No, I'm just kidding. For
Let me
those of
see
you who
them
hadn't seen the
titties.
podcast, we're just three regular guys, rather, that just love to talk basketball, football, and hockey. We just kind of weigh in, give our own takes, just kind of shoot the shit, have a beer, and just kind of do our thing. So, yeah, we're kind of just going to jump into some basketball today. We normally talk more football and hockey, but with the basketball season really heating up and we're nearing the playoffs, guys, playoff picture is kind of coming to fruition here. There's not much time left in the NBA season. It's starting to look, like we've got our play-in teams set, and maybe that seeding will change slightly, but it doesn't look like there's much that's going to change in the NBA playoff picture. So what do you think? Definitely surprised. I would not have guessed the field would look like this at the start of the
Sure.
year, but injuries and COVID and everything else have really derailed some teams' chances, and we got a pretty interesting landscape. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think a bunch of the teams at the top you could have expected to be there, like the 76ers, the Bucks, and the Nets, obviously, with everything that they have and picked up even during the season. The Knicks are surprising to me. I don't think a lot of people expected the Knicks to be up there.
A
And
lot of
and
people didn't
even
think the Knicks would make the playoffs, much less
yeah,
be in the middle of the pack. So good for them.
definitely. And then the Hawks, had rough stretches this year, but then also had stretches where they played really well, and that's how they've likely gotten themselves up there as far as to even probably actually at this point, not even have to do a play in. It looks like they're pretty much in at this point. And a team that I like to watch a little bit this season was the Hornets when
Mm-hmm.
LaMelo Ball was healthy. He really
I'm
looked
shocked
like,
by them too.
yeah, he really looked good, and that was enjoyable to watch. A team that probably not a lot of people expected to do really well, and then obviously our Bulls had times where they really impressed me, and then had times where they really kind of fell short. And down the stretch, I feel like there was games where it's like you need to win these, and we were playing even some subpar teams, and they blew it. So they're still not technically eliminated at this point. I think if they win out and the Wizards and or Pacers lose at least two, then they can actually get in. But it looks
I could
pretty
see the
pretty bleak
Pacers
at this
losing.
point. So the Bulls are on tonight versus the Nets. So pretty much the fate is
Yikes.
decided tonight. So we'll see.
Man, they out. They're playing like
Yeah.
garbage right now.
Actually, they're on like a 3-game win streak right now. But previous to that win streak, they played pretty
They've been
garbage.
garbage since the All-Star break. Yeah, a little win
Yeah.
streak's nice, but a little too late. They needed to come out swinging after that trade, and they didn't. But so yeah, I guess it's kind of time to just be sort of a general basketball fan again this year. You mentioned some of the teams that are a surprise. I'm super shocked to see the Suns atop the standings in the West. One of my friends bet on them to win that division, and I told him he was absolutely crazy. And I still think it's kind of bogus because the Lakers had a ton of injuries, and I really don't think that they
Sure.
necessarily belong atop that division. And we even saw in their last matchup with the Lakers kicked the shit out of them. So I still think the Lakers are a way better team. But I think if you told me that the Lakers were going to be in the play-in and the Suns would be at the top of the standings, I'd be like, whoa, Freaky Friday. Because
Yeah.
that's kind of exactly the opposite of what I thought was going to happen. I did not think Chris Paul would be good enough to make the Suns a top tier team. But again, I think that's kind of been the telltale story of the season is it's all been about health, whether that be
Yeah.
from COVID or injury. And the Suns, I don't know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Chris Paul, I think, has played almost every game this year,
I
which
think
is
so.
absolutely insane because I think he just turned 35 or 36 like last week or something. So, yeah, absolutely remarkable durability from him. Probably won't get the MVP votes that he deserves because he doesn't have the flashy stats. But I mean, undoubtedly changed the culture of that team. They had that little win streak in the bubble, but I don't think anybody anticipated they'd be atop the standings just from adding Chris Paul.
Sure.
So, yeah, shocked by that. The Jazz are a little higher than I thought too, but that is a team that I believe belongs in the middle of the pack pretty consistently. I actually picked them to upset Denver in the first round last year, and they almost did. They were up 3-1 and they blew it. So that's another good team that's overachieving a little bit due to injuries, but yeah, what a weird year. And didn't see the Sixers being in first either. Kind of shocked by that. I thought they would have honestly needed to make a trade, and I thought they were going to be the team to trade for Harden, but they got off to a hot start and chose not to. We'll see if that comes back to bite them if that Simmons and Embiid duo dries up in the playoffs with some better defense. But yeah, we'll see. Rich,
so Rich,
you got in? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, who's your most surprising team either that didn't or did make the playoffs? What was a surprise for you?
Mine definitely has to be the Knicks. I'm not a big basketball guy, as you guys know, but the Knicks actually making the playoffs convincingly is pretty much a shock, because everything I listened to before the season, everyone was just shitting all over the Knicks and how bad that team's going to be. They're not going to do well and just all that. And they have put together a pretty solid team on effort and defense and just playing hard. But again, once the playoff happens, every team starts playing hard. There's no more off nights for the big stars and everything. It is all a go. So it's really going to see, does the Knicks team ball and hard defense actually work, or are they just going to get steamrolled in the first round?
Yeah, the Knicks were definitely one of those teams all year that I was just kind of waiting for the point for them to drop off. And every time I was like, oh, this is the moment where they're going to, drop off. They went on a win streak instead of dropping off. And I was like, oh, well, that was surprising. And I kept expecting it up until literally days ago where I'm like, maybe they are a good team. Tibbs took a lot of the things that he did well with the Bulls and took it there and changed his style of coaching a little bit to be a little bit more player friendly from what I'm being told. Derrick Rose is playing out of his mind for his injury history.
And without that trade, I think.
Yeah. I remember when we were talking about trades, I questioned that, picking up an aging Rose this
seemed
late.
Like an old Thibodeau move that would have burned him in the past, but it seems to work.
I think he's averaging over 20 points a game and 7 assists. He's playing out of his mind.
It's almost back to his old days.
Right. And so, I'm as a Derrick Rose fan, I'm really happy to see him, get back out there and do his thing. I was going back and watching some old Derrick Rose highlights from, his MVP season and Rookie of the Year season, and I loved watching Rose. I even to this point forgot how dominant he looked at times. His quickness, how fast he was able to get up, some of those crazy blocks for being his size, the way he dished the ball, the way he drove the lane. He had 3 guys on him and somehow flipped it up and made it look easy. I haven't seen that, a lot out of a dominant type point guard in quite a while. And I just had to kind of reminisce about those times. And there's a lot of players, most of them ex-Bulls players like Luol Deng and stuff that say if Derrick Rose didn't get hurt that year, they think they would have won in the finals for sure. Yeah. And it's hard to argue against that with how well they were playing and how well they kind of rallied around Rose and how well they were coached and played defense and all of it. That's kind of a huge what if for us, I guess, but definitely happy to see Rose do his thing.
I'm happy to see him playing well too. And it's funny, the guy I always think of when I talk about Derrick Rose's, explosiveness and stuff and what could have been is Russell Westbrook. And I think that's been another big surprise of the season is this late surge by the Wizards, spearheaded by Russell Westbrook, who, I don't know if you guys have heard, but he's officially become the all-time leader in triple doubles, passing Oscar Robertson. So, what an remarkable feat. If you were to tell me 5 years ago someone would average a triple double, I'd say that's absurd. If you told me they'd do it 4 times in 5 years, which I think he's done now, I mean, just absolutely crazy. He had 21 assists last night. So it's not even like he's putting up like a 10-10-10 triple double every night.
Right.
He's scoring, I think, 22, 23 a game, and he's getting 12 rebounds and 12 assists a night, I think, on average, which is just absolutely insane. And he's willing this team into the play-in. And I, with the Bulls probably out, that's a team I'm most excited to watch because it's really a two-man team. I mean, I think people are maybe we're hard on the Wizards at the start of the year saying, why aren't they better? They have Bradley Beal and they have Russell Westbrook. What's the problem? Why can't they figure it out? But people forget their starting center, Thomas Bryant, who was probably a third best player on their team, was injured. Another guy you can look at who I think I expected to maybe be in that third scoring role, especially in the absence of Bryant. Davis Bertans, he's only shooting like 40% from the field. He's, I think, shot 42% from behind the arc last year, and this year he's a little under 40. So he's kind of come down to earth, shooting the ball a little bit. So the guys around them haven't been super great, but they made this move for Gafford, which I think was huge for them to kind of fill that Thomas Bryant void. And things seem to be clicking. I haven't watched a lot of their games, but clearly they're on a tear. Bradley Beal is currently nursing an injured hamstring, but I think they should still be able to get into the play-in. And if he rests up and, Westbrook stays healthy, I'm interested to see what the two of those guys can do in a single elimination tournament, because they can will you to wins just by taking over games, despite the rest of that roster really not being there.
Right. Yeah, definitely a team that'll be kind of interesting. Likely to be in the play-in tournament, and kind of got hot at a right moment, and definitely seemed that trade for Daniel Gafford really seemed to work out well for them. And he's been playing really well since getting there, especially defensively, and bringing some of that kind of emotion and stuff like that, and playing hard. Something that he showed signs of doing for the Bulls, but just couldn't really do it consistently, in my opinion. But definitely interesting. You mentioned the triple double record that Westbrook now holds. Now a bunch of people are now throwing his name up in that MVP category, which I mean, again, I think he's been playing really well, but I definitely don't think he deserves to be in that MVP type conversation.
Not when you're playing with the league's leading scorer. I think we got to get back to that too. I think we love to give MVPs to like a player that's having a crazy statistical season, but it's like a true most valuable player is like that team is dead in the water without you. Maybe that's true with the Wizards, but they're only a 10 seed anyway. Any other year, no one would care because that's not a playoff seed. So they're really not a playoff team, in my opinion. They've barely climbed into the 10 seed. I think they probably would be much lower than that and would have long given up if it was any normal season. Right. And then also, when you're playing with another like elite starting all-star, I mean, you could argue Russell Westbrook hasn't even – I mean, he's been the best player on his team, in my opinion, but you could argue that Bradley Beal is just as impactful. If it could be a co-MVP that means the most to their team, if you took two guys off any team, I think the Wizards would be the worst team in the league by far if they didn't have either of those guys. But – I think there's so many other guys that are deserving and having a better season. It's weird to see the MVP field so open this year, but I mean, it's Jokic and Embiid. I don't know what it is. People don't seem to want to give the props to those two guys, maybe because they're centers, but a center hasn't won the MVP since 2000. And anytime a guard has like a hot stretch, they're quick to be like MVP. I got in an argument with someone on Twitter earlier this season trying to say that Damian Lillard is the MVP because CJ McCollum was out for a little bit and he kept them afloat. But like, I think the Blazers are like going to just barely make it out of the play-in tournament. They're like a bottom, maybe 5th or 6th seed team in the West. And it's just like, you're not good enough to be MVP unless you're doing something astounding, like averaging a triple double, which unfortunately for Russ, he's made pretty routine. So it's kind of an average season for him, honestly.
Yeah. And thinking back to the All-Star game, did Russ even make the All-Star game? I know he had some injuries kind of early on, and
that's a good question.
He kind of turned it on later in this season. I don't think he was in the All-Star game, so that would be I would have to assume.
Oh yeah, he did miss. Wow,
One of
what a
the
crazy year.
that would be. I think we're all on the
That would
same
be the
page that
first time ever an MVP didn't make the All-Star
didn't make
game.
the All Star game. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is I think we're all on the same page that he's not going to win MVP, but that would be a crazy event to not even make an All Star game, but then turn it on so much as the season goes on to be even in the MVP race. And some people are putting him there. I really don't think he belongs there. We kind of talked a little bit more in depth about Steph Curry and his chances at getting there, which I think you can even make more of an argument for Steph. But I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see either of those guys. I think it's pretty much down to Jokic or Embiid at this point. I think I've had my vote on the Joker for most of the year, and I'm kind of sticking with it. And I know you've been kind of pulling for Embiid. So it'll be an interesting race, but definitely don't really see Westbrook moving into that spot. Even though, yeah, he has been playing well. A lot of people are uh, kind of attributing his stats to stat padding, and I would like to get your kind of thoughts about. Do you think Westbrook is kind of a stat padder? Do you think he actually, is that good? He plays a lot of
Well,
minutes.
Well, before you get into that, I want to go back to the MVP for
Sure.
Westbrook real quick because I think he should get like at least a couple votes for it from people because MVP is supposed to be the most valuable player to that team. And as you can see with a lot of the teams that are like doing really well, they can lose one of their superstars for a little while and still be okay because they have multiple superstars on these like really good playoff teams where you take Westbrook off of the Wizards, that team's like not even going to be close to making the playoffs with
Sure.
how they were playing and things like that. So the way that he has been playing, I feel like he's probably not going to win it, but to me, he should at least get at least a couple votes for the
Yeah.
way that he has gotten that team in a chance to even be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely agree with
Eh,
that, but
if
I
you
just
powered
that's
them to eighth and it was a regular year, I'd say, sure. And if Bradley Beal had missed some time, but I mean, yeah, I normally agree with that line of thinking, Rich, but being 10th is not really that impressive when you have two all-star caliber players on your team and you're playing in the East. Like they should be much better than they are. So just because they managed to power themselves out of a total downturn. And look, I'm the first to say that there were some injuries and stuff, but they're underachieving. And I just don't think you can give them MVP to an underachieving team. Like the Wizards should have been comfortably in the playoffs. They should probably not be in the play-in tournament, or they should be a 7 or 8 seed at the top of the play-in tournament, not at the bottom clinging to it. Like they should have comfortably been in the play-in tournament, if not higher than that. They should have at their ceiling this year is probably being like a 4 or 5 seed, and they
well,
greatly missed that.
I was just about to say, as we saw what the Knicks did, right?
Right.
Why couldn't this team do that? Why
Julius
couldn't
Randle should get some MVP votes.
Oh,
He's the only
100%.
All-Star on his team,
Yeah.
and he's got them from
Mhm.
fourth. He's completely exceeded expectations. He's like doubled his assist average. He's shooting like 40% from deep. He's doing it
Yeah.
all for them. He's
Yeah.
I think honestly that's one of the most valuable players in the NBA in the truest sense of the word. Like if the Knicks lost him, they would be one of the worst teams in the league without a doubt. And
Yeah.
instead they're in the middle of the pack in the playoffs, which is incredibly impressive.
I remember when the All-Star, voting came in, and he was one of the guys that I was questioning most as an All-Star. I know you really liked that he was in there, and I
He's
was
been good for
questioning.
years. That's the
Yeah.
thing people don't realize. If you
I
look at
was
his numbers, he's been flirting with an All-Star appearance for
Yeah.
3 years now. So,
Yeah, and I thought he would be right there again, flirting with it, but not quite getting in.
mhm.
So I was surprised to see him get in. He was one of the guys in there that I was saying, he may or may not deserve to be here, a fringe guy, as I would say. But he's really kind of put me to shame, I guess, and really played out this season well, and yeah, got his Knicks in that conversation of being a top team in the East, something that we didn't see from the Wizards, we didn't see from the Raptors, and stuff like that. So yeah, I would definitely say, in my opinion, he deserves to be in the MVP conversation a lot more than some of the people that are. In my opinion, maybe I would have to go through the list, but third or fourth in voting for me.
I think Jokic is probably gets it for me now. Seeing how they've responded to Jamal Murray going down and him still continuing to have a crazy season, and they're a top 3 seed in the West. I think Philly's Embiid has been super impressive too, but there are, they got Ben Simmons, who's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. So I think he's as valuable to the defense as Embiid is to the offense. And then Tobias Harris has had a quietly really nice season too. So I think it's Jokic, because I think if you took him off that Denver Nuggets team right now, they'd get swept by literally any team in the Western Conference playoff field without him, and without Jamal Murray now too. And the fact that they're in third is really impressive.
When does I'm not sure about this. When does MVP voting kind of come in? Like, when do we know who's going to be the MVP?
I think you usually don't know until like the second round. I don't know but that's the older method. Honestly, man, I'm trying to think when we found out Giannis was MVP. I think he had already been knocked out of the playoffs. Sometimes you don't know till like the finals almost. Like, it's weird. I feel like he gets later and later every year, which is annoying. Okay. Because I don't like – that's the other thing that I adamantly like disagree with, is when people will – the MVP voting won't come out until the playoffs have happened, and somebody has a terrible playoffs, but they had clearly the best regular season, and people try to take that away from them. That's a regular season award, and I feel like I don't really like when the voting extends too far into the playoffs, because it starts to change people's opinion of just the season, just those 70 or 80 games or however long the season is in a given year. I think that's the only sample size you should be able to look at.
It says the MVP for NBA is usually announced at the end of June.
So after the finals is how they're doing it. So I don't really like that. And I think it's annoying.
I think at that point you're definitely risking having some of the playoff type play go into your decision making. And then if your team kind of goes out early, that'll definitely seem to hurt your chances at winning it. So
or just change it, just to say, hey, it's now the entire season. It's more like the Conn Smythe, and it's more of like a playoff MVP award. And then if you wanted to give it to like Jimmy Butler last year because he played great in the regular season and then even better in the playoffs, then that would be cool.
I think you could make an argument that there should be a season MVP, a playoff MVP, and a finals MVP, where you could break it into three different awards essentially, and the same player can win all three if he was that good throughout and played consistently. But
it'd be pretty cool to see that, honestly.
Yeah, but I definitely think breaking it up like that would be interesting, and in my opinion, I think that'd be really cool.
Definitely, you'd see, at least it wouldn't feel like there's ever a guy that got snubbed, because you have 3 chances to win some form of an MVP.
Yeah.
So someone like LeBron, at least he gets those finals MVPs when he's able to win, but he's been getting snubbed on some MVPs as of late.
And I'm definitely against, the whole give everybody a trophy type, atmosphere where everyone's a winner and all that. I'm kind of against that as a whole. But I'm also, totally for recognizing when players played really well and giving them props when they do. So I think for me, if they've earned the right to be in those conversations and they've played, truly well, then I'm all for giving them a trophy. So I'd like to see that maybe.
So speaking of, we talked a little bit about the Conn Smythe. That kind of puts our heads back in the state of, what's going on in the NHL. Sure. Adam's done a good job on our sheet that you guys are unable to see of sort of breaking down the kind of final 1 or 2 games for some of these teams left in the NHL. But this playoff picture is pretty well fleshed out. So in addition to the NBA playoff picture, we have an even more fleshed out NHL picture. We're pretty much going to kind of, for all intents and purposes, call it over, because it'll probably be playoff time by the time we get rolling on our next podcast. So guys, let's take a look at the teams who made it. And does anyone have any dark horse picks or anyone who they think is going to go the distance and win the cup this year?
Yeah, obviously as a Blackhawks fan, I hated to see my guys kind of go out and go out on an overtime loss.
Oh, fuck them, dude. I want that team to get blown up.
I know you do so
I'm
bad.
So done.
And I'm not ready for it yet. And I know
I saw
a lot of people aren't going to agree with that, but
I live in the West Loop, dude, and I saw all these people like wearing Hawks jerseys, and I know that the arena they're not allowing fans in. So I'm like, what are you guys all wearing Hawks jerseys for?
They are
These
though, Austin.
depressing. Oh, they are allowing fans in?
The two last home games of the season, literally within the last week, but just like, oh, like you can have 25% capacity
That's
now.
why.
So
That's
literally
so garbage.
two home games they allowed
What a
fans
slap
for
in the
this
face
week.
to the
Yeah.
fans. But
Bolts
what a
too.
bunch of delusional fans, man, just turning up to watch a meaningless pair of games. And like some people I saw in the bar by the grocery store by my house, like watching the game, I'm like, you guys are fucking depressing. Like in your Patrick Kane jerseys, just like watching our team not make the playoffs. It's like, it's really hard to watch. I just rolled my eyes super hard and walked by. I was like, nah, I'm not going to watch that West team. Fuck
if
that.
I had the time and the tickets are cheap, which I'm sure they're not at this point, I probably would have gone too. It's always nice.
If somebody was like, yeah, I got tickets, let's go, I'd be like, sure. But I'm not going to pay through the roof to watch a team that just got eliminated from the playoffs after you told me I couldn't show up all year. It's like, fuck that.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that because I remember it was near the end of a year one time for the Bears, Rich, that you and I went to a Bears game at the end of the year when I think they had no chance at making the playoffs. And we showed up, got extremely intoxicated and just heckled both teams while drinking heavily. And it was actually one of the funnest games that I've been to. Rich, I don't remember.
Wasn't that against the Bucks?
No, this was 49ers, and it was Kaepernick, one of Colin Kaepernick's last games with the 49ers.
Yeah,
and,
in the snow.
Yeah, in the snow.
Yeah, it was a snow game. Okay.
It was snowing heavily, and Leonard Floyd sacked. I remember this was his first career safety, first of two that he had in his career against Colin Kaepernick, and the Bears played like super well that game, and we ended up like demolishing them.
Ran all over that team.
It was essentially a useless game, but it was just incredibly fun to be there while it was just in a blizzard, just drinking and having a good time. So I would definitely be, in for that, even if the team's eliminated. Just show up and find a way to have fun. So kind of got off track a little bit, but yeah. So essentially, Blackhawks are out. We all know that. The team that I'm surprised that made it in there is the Canadians. They had a pretty rough season this year, as far as normal for the Canadians, and they still made it in there. Have 56 points right now, and they have one game remaining. For anyone that doesn't follow closely, to put that in perspective, the Blackhawks finished their season with 56 points. So if we were in that division, there would be a chance that we would have made the playoffs in that division. So didn't play super well, especially down the stretch. So I was kind of surprised to see them get in.
Yeah, that kind of is always like disappointing with the divisions for like any sport when they divide it up like that, and there's some like kind of garbage team in there when there's probably always at least two or three other teams that are just in a huge rough division, and there's nothing they could do about it. And then this garbage team just gets in.
It reminds me of, the NFC East with like the Cowboys getting in a couple of years in a row, going like 8-8, or that AFC South when, the Colts, the Jags, Houston, when none of them were good and they were getting teams in on like, 7-6 or 6-10 or whatever it is. And that was just awful. Like, there was teams missing the playoffs that won 10 games, and a team that, didn't even come close to being 50-50 gets in there, stuff like that. I feel like that, that's almost kind of like a slap in the face.
I'll give the NHL a pass this year because I know it was COVID, and I think they erred on the side of extreme caution, and they kept the divisions, only playing each other, I think is how it shook out for the whole season, which I thought was kind of fun that they did like a Canadian division. That must have been fun if you're Canadian and we're a fan of one of those teams.
Sure.
But other than that, it's kind of annoying because there are divisions that are much better than others, and the team that's dominating their division for the past few years was probably licking their chops at the opportunity to crush their division. And I also think it was kind of screwed up that they leased those out to sponsors too. They made these makeshift divisions and then like sponsored them too. So I hope that that's not a sign that they're going to stay next year because these sponsors don't want to relinquish their divisions, but that would be really annoying. But
Definitely
I'll give them the pass,
happening.
but I definitely agree. I'm very anti-division. I'm glad that the NBA has kind of done away with the divisional standings really at all. Like I don't like when like I think the NBA used to do like if you win your division, you're guaranteed a top 3 seed out of the 8. And there were teams that were like did not belong having a 3 seed, and then like the 2 best teams in the conference would like play each other in the second round, and you're like, this is so dumb. This should be the conference finals.
Yeah.
I think that happened with like the Mavs and the Spurs one year, and it like went 7. And it's just like, why are these teams playing so hard in the second round? Everyone else has like a cakewalk matchup and they have to play each other in the second round. Like it's just total garbage. So, and they finally did away with that. And I just would love to see other sports do that too. Cause the NFL's, division with the Cowboys, Washington football team, the Eagles, the Giants, that nightmare dumpster fire divisions, like those teams don't really deserve to be in the playoffs, in my opinion. And similar thing here. But that being said, guys, do you have a dark horse pick? My pick that I kind of would like to see go the distance. I think maybe they're a little young and inexperienced, but I'm really impressed with their play, and I like their team and have for a while now. I think the Avalanche maybe have a shot to shock some people and take a leap forward this year. I don't know if they'll go all the way to the cup, but like, hockey is so off the wall in terms of who wins and stuff anyway. It's a matter of heating up, and especially this year when some teams haven't even played each other this year. So like the true contenders probably haven't even faced each other this year. So I don't know. I'm going to go with them. I don't know why. I haven't been watching much hockey this year, but I think that's just a lights out offensive team that I think is a little better on defense than even I gave them credit for before looking at some of their statistics here. And I just like that team's chances. Although, the Vegas Knights, I think would maybe be the obvious pick.
Sure. Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. I remember that, Rich. I remember Rich going back and just picking Vegas, or as he likes to call them, the Oakland Knights.
The Oakland Knights.
But anyway, as far as a dark horse, I'm not sure. I can see it going a bunch of different ways. I think it's really hard to judge this year because of the fact that no cross play, teams
I know.
play
That's why I
outside.
didn't.
So a team could really kind of dominate their division, but maybe they played in a weak division. That Canadian division was really fun to watch. Those teams hate each other, and there's a bunch of fights, a bunch of suspensions, and all kinds of shit happening, which was really fun to watch. But I don't know if any of them are like really, really good. I can certainly see the Maple Leafs or the Oilers, ending up in the finals.
Oilers don't defend though, man. They're such an exciting team to watch, but like they still don't really play defense. Like look at these statistics, man. Their goals against, they're allowing 147 goals a game.
Yeah.
And then you look at some of the other teams like Islanders at 128, Boston's good defense at 134 goals allowed. Tampa allows a lot of goals. They're another big offensive team. Carolina's doing a good job defensively. And then Vegas at 124, Colorado at 132. I don't know. Come playoff time when teams care more about defense and, you can't hang your hat on averaging a point a game when, teams are locking in on your best players. You're not just going to go out and be able to dominate and just score. Like Connor McDavid's going to see, people are going to shadow him all over the ice, and they got Draisaitl and stuff too, and a lot of other offensive weapons. But I still just think like those guys aren't going to be able to deliver every single night, and even if they can, they're not going to be able to deliver enough to counteract the fact that they're not playing good enough defense. Adam, did you freeze?
I think Adam did just freeze, so that's not good.
This will be the cover of our YouTube video. This face Adam's making.
We should. It's just a nice little throw.
I want this airbrushed on a t-shirt.
Just like Adam. There's our first t-shirt product right there is Adam.
Am I back?
He's back. He's back.
All right.
My dark horse team, I guess, since I already picked the Knights to win it all, if I'm going to go with the dark horse, I'm going to go with the Hurricanes. Just gonna throw that.
I can see that. Hurricanes are good. My friend Josh, who we've got to get on this podcast, I think that's the team he's been saying to look out for. That's a really good team. So.
I don't.
I don't think they have enough playoff experience. Playoff experience seems to be really even more than in other sports, seems to be really important in hockey in a way. I don't know. I don't really see it. I think they played well this year. I wouldn't be shocked if the Lightning come out of that, that division just because they have way more
They choke,
playoff
though, man.
experience.
More years than not, the Lightning choke.
They end up in the Cup a fair amount. Obviously won it not too long ago. The Hawks beat them there.
They come in like first or second in the conference like every year, and some years they get knocked out in the first round. So I don't know.
Same
the
thing
Lightning
with the
have
Penguins.
playoff experience, but they were able to kind of like end that curse, so to speak, of being upset in the first round. But for years there, the experience didn't really matter. Sometimes it's those teams that don't have the experience that make an insanely deep run, and you're like, what the hell?
I mean, that's true. I guess listening to like Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane and stuff, they said that the first cup was the easiest to win because there was no expectations for them to win it.
Definitely.
Stuff like that. But I don't know. It seems like in hockey, it's like the same teams seem to get there a lot, and I think that has a lot to do with that playoff experience.
They do, but it's over the course of like a long tenure of like, 10, 15 years of having the core team together that, they'll make 5 cup appearances or something. I mean? Like the Penguins. I mean, the Penguins are a team where you go, they're good every 5 years, and this might be the year another year they break through. But they're getting.
I don't really see the Penguins this year. You might call me a Penguins hater, but I don't know. I don't see it this year. Sidney Crosby's getting old and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're starting to fade, but it's crazy to see them atop the standings.
I would say out of that division, for me, the team to watch would be the Capitals. They get streaky.
They're getting old too,
but they're good. But I don't really see that division being in the finals. I think you got to look at the Maple Leafs, the Oilers, like I said, possibly, and then out of our division,
I don't think the Oilers will go the distance. I could be wrong, but
out of our division, I think for me at this point it would be the Lightning. I don't know if they'll end up in the finals either, but I think they'll make it out of our division. And I think the surprise team in our division for me would be the Panthers. Q's got them playing really well, and I kind of see them, possibly having a chance. And then as Rich kind of mentioned, the Knights or the Avs. I definitely think it's going to be one of those teams that make it out of that division. I don't think the Blues or the Wild really kind of have a shot for me, even though both teams that also play well every once in a while and don't really have a lot of playoff experience, but definitely both of them have some. So
I think you need a balance of some experience, but not being so beat up and old that you can't go the distance.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as kind of how the season worked out this year with, only playing in the division, I feel like that makes it really hard to really kind of pick a team that's going to go all the way, because there wasn't a lot of, seeing how the teams are going to match up this year in general. I didn't really like the only play in your division, but it definitely made, making the playoffs more straightforward. You have to beat those kind of couple teams and you're in. And obviously some teams are able to do that with a great amount of success, and other teams not so much. And
it kind of feels like an Olympic qualifier type of thing, where it's like you're going to get in and you're going to see teams that haven't seen each other all year playing each other finally. And it's, you dominated your little kingdom of teams in an area of the country, and then, you're going to roll in and, get ready to play against teams you haven't seen all year. So I think it'll be really fun. I'm excited to tune in. I haven't been watching much hockey, but playoff hockey is so fun to watch. I'm a fair weather playoff hockey fan. It's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, playoff hockey is always a good time.
So I think we're actually running a little early on this pod today, which is good. Maybe it's seeing our beautiful faces made us read the body language and kind of keep on pace, so to speak. But we've made a modification to our fan favorite segment, the 2-minute drill. Normally we do 8 questions in 2 minutes. Today we're going to do 6, since no one has technically ever climbed the 8 questions in 2 minutes mountain, except for Rich, who cheated and he said yes to 2 questions, which is not a sufficient answer when you're on a sports podcast.
I'll give Rich the
we didn't have rules.
I'm going to do a 2-minute drill for Rich, which is just like 100 yes or no questions in 2 minutes.
Hey, a win's a win. There's no rules yet. That's not my fault. I played within the rules. I answered my
You're
A.
like the Dallas Cowboys of the 2-minute drill. You won on like a garbage technicality.
Oh man, haters gonna hate.
So anyway, Rich and I have taken the time to compile some questions. I'm gonna read them today. Rich, you're gonna run the time.
Oh boy.
All right.
Yes.
I will.
And
get that
Adam, let me know
started.
when you're ready. You're doing this thing.
I mean,
Well-
I guess I'm as ready as I will ever be, but I don't really feel all that ready.
You can never be ready.
Okay.
That's why it's a 2-minute drill.
All right,
Oh,
both you
boy.
guys ready?
I feel
ready
like
to
you
roll.
guys always get me with question one. Question one, you throw me off.
Oh, you're
guard,
gonna
and
love
then-
question one
and then the
because
rest
it's
of the
such a
time-
broad question, and
Oh,
it's actually
boy.
a fun one that I could easily spend 20 minutes on.
Oh
So
man.
I know you're
Okay.
gonna hate it. All right, you
All right.
ready?
I'll do
Yeah.
the countdown.
Hold on.
3.
No, hold on.
Okay. I'll do the
All right,
countdown because I got
go.
the timer. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, if you could have any NBA player of all time's best skill, whose would it be and why?
Man, that's a hard one right off the bat. I would just Michael Jordan's will to win. That's all I
There you
need.
go. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's all you need. Your favorite hockey player and why?
Patrick Kane, I've watched him his whole career. He kind of got me watching the Hawks. He does a lot of crazy things, whether it's passing or goal scoring. He can kind of do everything. So I love those spinoramas. Go.
Those are great. Best defensive player in the NFL of all time and why?
Ooh, best all-time defensive player. Man, skip it for now. We'll come back.
Is A-Rod playing for the Packers this season?
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna go out on a lip. I kind of think he will. I think they'll get it worked out, but just because if it doesn't end up happening, I can go back to this moment and be like, see, I told you guys. So I'm gonna say no. I think he either sits out or gets traded to Denver. I think it'll be. All right.
All right. Is Tim Tebow going to make the Jags?
I think he will. I think he works with Urban Meyer. I think that's just one of those things where it's like it's not the skill you have, it's the people you know type of thing.
Right.
So
Garrett Bowles
I
with
think
Thibodeau
I-
kind of thing. Yeah.
I think he just kind of will make the roster just as like another kind of player coach
40
in the locker
seconds.
room. Go ahead.
Best bar in Bartlett, Illinois.
Oh man, I don't really know if there are any bars in Bartlett. I know there's a strip club down the road
You still have another
that-
question after this.
that everyone has said good things about. I've never been to. Maybe we'll check it out someday. You guys, go ahead.
Best defensive player in the NFL of all time and why? You got like 15 seconds.
I really like Mike Singletary. I think just his smarts and how ferocious he was as a player. I think I'd go with Mike Singletary. That 85 Bears, still to this day, I think you can't argue is
He's gonna
the
make
greatest defensive team of all time. Done.
Oh, he
All
just
right,
stopped
congrats.
talking.
So 6 is possible.
Right at 1. Wow.
And
Wow, he went for the
still-
skip and he circled back too.
I
Wow.
still felt rushed. I don't know. There's a bunch of names that popped in my head when you said
Man.
best defensive player.
I knew you would pick a bear just because like
I felt like I had
thought that would
to.
be an easy question. I honestly thought that was
No.
probably the easiest question on there,
There's
other than maybe A-Rod playing for the Packers.
There's too many because the Bears just in general have had so many great defenders. You think about, Mike Singletary, Brian Urlacher, and stuff like that from some of those great teams. But then you got Ray Lewis. You got there's just so many. Darren Sharper, Troy
Darren
Polamalu. I
Think
liked
of that
watching.
YouTube video. Every
Yeah,
time
that's
I hear
that's I think why the name popped into my head.
Dude, LT.
One of the most hardest hitting
yeah,
safeties
that was-
in the league.
LT, yeah, LT. I think he's one that they always say that
Guy
Bill
was nuts.
Belichick circles back to, and I think he can go on and on about talking about LT. He was definitely swirling around in my brain, and I think when it came back to it, and I had that last question left, it was just like Bears, like the Bears players just like went through my mind, and I was like, I think one of my favorite Bears players of all time is Samurai Mike, just because of how ferocious he was and just how intelligent of a player. They said that like oftentimes they would, Mike Singletary would tell you what the play was before they would run it. They would come to the
I
line
love
and he'd be
guys
like,
like
all right,
that.
to run left.
Those
And then,
stories
like,
are always so funny to me. Larry Bird was like that in the NBA. He'd be like, all right, this is your play. He would be like, you're in the wrong spot. He would tell the other team, like, no, you're screening for him. You're supposed to be on the left side, remember?
Yeah.
Like, like roll his eyes and be like, "Fuck, he's right." Walk over there and do what he's supposed to do.
It's like players that are that smart. Sometimes you can almost overcome. Not saying that by any means these players aren't athletic, but you can almost overcome being not the most athletic guy out there if you can be the smartest guy, on the floor or on the field. Peyton Manning really showed that. Peyton Manning,
you know where to be.
Nobody ever talks about how great of an athlete Peyton Manning was. They don't even necessarily talk about his arm strength. When you hear people talk about how great Peyton Manning was, it's 100% just because of how intelligent he was and that he could memorize like the whole playbook, 160 plays, and go out there and tell where every single player on the field is supposed to be for all 160 plays.
That's incredible.
And that's incredible. Yeah. So that's what made him great.
Reading that defense and everything, but I thought I totally had you on the Bartlett question of the bar.
Are there any bars in Bartlett?
That is true. He said a strip club, I believe, was his answer.
Yeah,
he never really did give a bar. Technically,
he did not. So
do we count that as winning?
What is that? What's that strip club called?
There are bars in Bartlett. I've driven past some. I think I went to one when I was living.
Are you sure it wasn't St. Charles? Because that's where we always used to go to the bar, was in St. Charles.
Nope, it was 100% in Bartlett. There are a couple. They're not a lot, but they are there.
I'll have to look that up.
Rich, I want to know your defensive player. I don't want to really use that question, and I feel like you'd probably have one to weigh in.
Oh my God! So, defensive player of all time. I have to go the typical. I have to do LT. You watch those highlights. Not only is he just completely dominating offensive lines and just dominating people, he also did most of that coked out of his mind. So, like, not only is he, like, throwing people around, but he is doing all that while super high. That cannot be easy.
Well, I don't know. Maybe PCP gives you, like, an edge.
It's, like, nuts. Like, it's unreal how, like, insanely physical that guy was. Might not have been the smartest player on the field, but he definitely
3 Defensive Player of the Year awards,
nuts.
2 Super Bowl rings, and is one of 2 defensive players ever to win the league MVP. So wow, that's a telling. Yeah.
So I'm looking this up, Rich. I'm not seeing any straight bars in Bartlett. I'm seeing some kind of bar and grill type places, but I don't know any that are just like a bar.
No, there's a couple dive bar-y places.
I don't think so.
I've
think you're thinking like Hanover Park or like Elgin or St. Charles or something.
For real?
I don't know.
No
yeah.
Way. No, there has to.
That strip club is like the only one. Full nude, full liquor.
All right, Alan promoting the club by his place.
Yeah, maybe that strip club will sponsor us, and we could eat some of their wings on the podcast or something.
Yeah.
My personal favorite defensive player was Bob Sanders from the Colts. I really liked him just because he was short, played so physical, and just oh man, he was so good. Only if he would have stayed healthy.
I'm surprised, Rich, by your pick. You talk about so many defensive players. I thought you would go with somebody else.
He picked Lawrence. I mean, dude, I've Googled it. Lawrence Taylor. That seems to be a consensus. A lot of people agree with Rich. It's not it's a wild take.
No, that pick I'm not surprised about. I think most people, if you would ask, would pick that. Yeah. Bob Saget. What'd you say?
Bob Saget. Bob Sanders.
Wow. No, here you go, Adam. I found it. The one place I went to. Bratchett's place.
Bratchett's, if you want to sponsor
Bartlett.
Where is it?
If you'd like to sponsor the podcast, you could email Rich at Davis122. Just kidding. I'm not going to read it.
Yeah. There's that place. There's what is it? Gambits. Yeah, I told you there was literally 2 actual bars.
None of them even showed up.
We're doing really good on time, and we're really falling off here. Should we just wrap this thing up?
Yeah, we should end this. Yeah.
Puts together his top 10 strip clubs or something, and it's just we don't need that content.
Yeah.
Right We don't need to dig that deep.
I ain't doing that. But
All
all right.
Until next
this
week.
has been episode 12. Till next week. It'll be playoff time, hopefully, so it should be an exciting one.
Yeah.
Guys, have a good one.
All right, you too. Peace.
Love ya.